Testing the mic.
You guys, all of our veterans on this trip, because it's been absolutely amazing. I'm incredibly grateful
Testing
for
the
that. So
mic.
thank you so very much. Your service to this country is deeply appreciated, and I'm forever grateful for that. For all of our red shirt guardians in this room, for all of our red shirt guardians, thank you for your selflessness, your gratitude, and your compassion in dealing with our veterans throughout the duration of our trip. Honor Flight Kern County as an organization cannot exist without your dedication and effort, so thank you to our Red Shirt Guardians. So I would like to take a moment to discuss this table to my left. This table to my left is commonly referred to as the missing man table. The symbolism of the missing man table: the table is round to show our everlasting concern for missing men. The cloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their motives when answering the call to service. The single red rose displayed in a vase reminds us of the lives these Americans and their loved ones and friends who keep the faith while seeking answers. The red ribbon symbolizes our continued determination to account for our missing. The slice of lemon reminds us their bitter fate, captured or missing in a foreign land. A pinch of salt symbolizes the tears of our missing and their families who long for answers after decades of uncertainty. The lighted candle reflects our hope for their return, alive or dead. The Bible represents the strength gained through faith to sustain us and those lost from our country, founded as one nation under God. A glass is inverted, symbolizing their inability to share a toast. The chair is empty, the seat that remains unclaimed at the table. I took the liberty to add Bill Cromit's flag to this table as a gesture to show that while he is not here with us in physical form, his spirit remains alive in this room, and as long as we can remember, we can continue to serve through Honor Flight Kern County and keep Bill's spirit alive. So, thank you. So we have some incredibly special guests with us this evening. First, I would like to introduce a Bakersfield native. This gentleman has been a part of Honor Flight Kern County several times. This time, last year, I had the privilege of being on the honor flight where his father was able to attend. The person I'm referring to is Colonel Steve Brewer. He's a hometown guy. He grew up in Bakersfield, California. After graduating from West High School, he enlisted into the National Guard at the Kern County Fairgrounds and served part-time while attending college at Cal State University, Bakersfield. After attending Officer Candidate School, he was commissioned a second lieutenant in the 2nd Battalion, 160th Infantry. He served in a variety of assignments for more than 18 years in the National Guard, with notable deployments in support of the LA riots in 1992 and Hurricane Katrina in 2005. During the War on Terror, he transferred onto active duty, where he is completing 18-plus years in various assignments, including the deployment to Iraq and service in Kuwait and 15 NATO nations. He was assigned to the Pentagon 4 times and assisted in the establishment of the nascent U.S. Space Force. His final assignment was a professor and later Dean of Students at the Eisenhower School for National Security and Resource Strategy at National Defense University in Washington, D.C., where he mentored our next generation of senior leaders. Steve will be retiring at the end of this year after 37 years of service to our nation.
after my 45-minute speech, I'm just going to introduce their true speaker tonight, Major General Bill Seeley, U.S. Marine Corps. There we go. Yeah, I should say he's my boss, so I'm going to say all nice things. No, actually, he's been one of my best bosses. So he was born in Saigon, Vietnam, and grew up in Southern California. He was commissioned into the Marine Corps in 1989 and has served in every level of leadership from platoon, company, battalion, to task force commander in Iraq and Afghanistan. Major General Seeley's other operational deployments include the USS Blue Wood for the United Shield, Mogadishu, Somalia in 1994-95, the USS Essex and USS Tarawa for Southern Watch, Intrinsic Action, and Desert Thunder in Kuwait 1996 through 98, and the USS Palau for Stabilized East Timor in 1999. He deployed to Iraq 4 times. Six times. There are 2 more times just while we're sitting here. Major General Seeley has earned the Defense Superior Service Medal, the Legion of Merit, the Bronze Star with Combat V device, and many numerous awards that I could just go on and on and on. As a general officer, he served as the Marine Corps' Director of Communication and the Marine Corps' Director of Intelligence. He is the Senior Intelligence Officer in the United States Marine Corps today. He's currently the Commandant of the Eisenhower School for National Security and Resource Strategy. Major General Seeley will be retiring next year to become Commandant of the Virginia Tech's Corps of Cadets. Yeah. May I please introduce Major General Bill Seeley.
Hey, thanks, Steve, and that's a little loud. First of all, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It is truly my most profound honor to address all of you tonight. You, literally, the brave men of the Honor Flight, as well as the women veterans who are here also serving as guardians. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for serving our nation with unwavering dedication and sacrifice. You represent the very best of America, hailing from the hallowed ranks of World War II, the Korean War, the Cold War, the Vietnam War, and Grenada. Tonight, we all gather to celebrate and honor and thank you for all of the sacrifices and unwavering courage you have performed. I do have a special place, and I want to say a special thank you to our Vietnam veterans. As I was born in Saigon, Vietnam, and I've even spent some time, no kidding, living as an infant because of my medical condition at the time in the 3rd Field Hospital just outside of Tonson, and some of you may know that or recognize the name there in Saigon. I eventually emigrated here to the United States, living in Southern California in the early 70s. As Washington, D.C. welcomes you, the veterans of Kern County, who have journeyed here with the Honor Flight, I am reminded of the profound impact of your service during some of the most challenging times in our nation's history, starting with World War II, the Korean War, living through the Cold War, Grenada, and the Vietnam conflict. Each of you has answered the call to defend our freedoms and uphold the values we all cherish. You faced unimaginable challenges, from the battlefields of Europe to the jungles of Southeast Asia and the Caribbean, the frozen landscapes of Korea, and long-term deployments overseas during the Cold War. Your bravery in the face of adversity and your commitment to our nation's ideals have shaped the very fabric of our nation. All of you are not just soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, but also fathers, and for the guardians here, some of them anyway, fathers, mothers, brothers, and sisters. Individuals who have made tremendous sacrifices for the safety and security of others. Your stories and tales of valor and resilience inspire us all, and it is our duty to ensure these stories are never forgotten. For this week, as you walk through the memorials that honor your service, know that you are not alone. You are surrounded by a grateful community that recognizes the price of freedom and the sacrifices all of you and I mean all of you, have made. One of my favorite verses of the Bible, Isaiah chapter 6, verse 8, says, "Who shall I send? Who will go for us? Here I am, send me." Each of you, regardless of the era you served in, answered the call to send me and to defend a country they never knew for a people they may have never met. Your sacrifices have not been in vain. I'm living proof right here that the freedom and democracy we and I enjoy today stand as a testament to your bravery and dedication. When you return home to Kern County, please know that your country stands united in the gratitude for your service. You've earned our and my most deepest respect, our unwavering support, and our eternal thanks. May your continued journey be filled with moments of reflection, camaraderie, of course, and probably some late-night drinking. And of course, the recognition that you all richly deserve. So I and we here in this room stand in awe of your service and dedication. Thank you for your service, your sacrifice, and for being the embodiment of American courage and resilience. So I offer at the end here, welcome home. God bless you. We remain Semper Fidelis, and we are always faithful to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Major General Seeley, for the remarks. Just quick note, last week it kind of dawned on me, small town boy from Bakersfield, I'm setting an agenda for this evening. And I look over to my wife and I'm like, babe, who should speak first at our dinner? Should it be the general or the congressman? Something I never thought I would have to decide on. But here we are. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Congressman Vince Fong is with us today. Congressman Fong has been a member of Honor Flight Kern County since its inception. He still is a member of our advisory board, and he has a deep respect for our veterans. He fights for us, and I appreciate your support of Honor Flight Kern County, so thank you very much, sir. When we visit the congressman at his place of work tomorrow, he'll have some remarks for us, so thank you for joining us for dinner, sir. Okay, so now we move into the program portion of our evening. What I'd like is for the Honor Flight staff, our bus leaders, to please come forward. But I'd like to discuss a couple of administrative notes. So we have our World War II, our Korea, and our Cold War veterans. We're going to ask them to come up. I'll call you up alphabetically. Guardians, particularly with our, if your veteran needs assistance, please come up with him. When I call you up, ABC, A through C, please come on this side of the room. My lovely assistant, Glenn Nakashima, is here to display. I asked for Vanna White, I got Glenn. I love you, Glenn. Come over here, help your veteran over to the center, right here in front of us. We have a few things that we'd like to present to you, okay? After we conclude the World War II, Cold War, and Korean War veterans, there'll be some administrative remarks that I'll say regarding tomorrow, but once we've moved into the Vietnam era portion of our presentation, our World War II, Korean, and Cold War veterans, you guys are free to go. You can go to bed, you can go to the bar if you want to. It's your choice. But please don't feel obligated to stay for the duration of the program. Does that make sense? Got it? All right, without further ado, if you are how many do we have? Let's see. We have a lot. May I have John Aguilar, Lauren Buehler, and Earl Blakely come up here, please. If you are a World War II, Korea, or Vietnam veteran, and your last name begins with the letter A, B, C, or D, please make your way up here. Can we have you come up? So one thing, if you look at the camera, it's on the tripod in the back. That camera is live broadcasting our program tonight. So if you have family or friends back home that aren't aware that we're broadcasting this presentation, shoot them a message, let them know, and they'll be able to see our presentation this evening. Without further ado, Mr. John Aguilar, Sergeant First Class, Army National Guard, Army. Cold War in Vietnam. Hometown location in his service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from 1954 to 1980. Took basic training at Camp Roberts, California and Fort Irwin, California. John served in the Army National Guard from 1954 to 1958 and was discharged with the rank of sergeant. He was called to active duty in 1961 and served as a platoon sergeant and forward observer in an artillery unit in Fort Lewis, Washington during the Berlin crisis. He was discharged in 1962 and returned to the National Guard in Bakersfield in 1964 and served until 1980. Mr. John Aguilar. Mr. Lauren Buehler. Lauren Buehler, Corporal, United States Army, Korea. Hometown, location, and in service of Payton, Idaho. Dates of service from September 1952 to August of 1954. He took basic training at Fort Ord, California. After basic, Lauren volunteered for a special intelligence school in Oakland. This put him on the front line in Korea at the 38th parallel in the infantry with Company Kilo, 15th Infantry, 3rd Division. He took part in small patrols to capture and repel Chinese crossing into South Korea. He received wounds from a Chinese mortar attack just days before the armistice was signed in July of 1953. He is the recipient of the Republic of Korea Korean War Service Medal, a Republic of Korea Presidential Unit Citation, a Combat Infantryman's Badge, a Bronze Star, and a Purple Heart. Mr. Lauren Buehler. Mr. Earl Blakely. Earl Blakely, Specialist, United States Army, Cold War. Hometown location and service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from August 1957 to June of 1959. He took basic training at Fort Ord, California. Earl served as a finance clerk at Fort Irwin, California. Mr. Earl Blakely. Jerry Bowles. Jerry Bowles, Private, United States Army and Army National Guard, Cold War in Vietnam. Hometown location and service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from 1960 to 1966. He took basic training at Fort Ord, California. After basic training, Jerry attended transportation school at Fort Eustis, Virginia. He served as a truck driver with the 9th Battle Group, 3rd Brigade, Company Bravo. He was transferred to the National Guard in 1961 and served there until 1966, including service during the Watts Riot in 1965, Mr. Jerry Bowles. Bob Bunnell. Bob, are you in the room? Bob? Hey, Bob. If you're a World War II, Korea, or Cold War veteran, and your last name begins with the letter E, F, or G, please start making your way up to my left, your right. My left, your right. Bob Bunnell, Seaman, 3rd Class, United States Navy, Cold War. Location and service of Long Beach, California. Dates of service from August 1958 to May of 1960. Took basic training in San Diego, California. Bob served as a deckhand on the heavy cruiser USS Toledo and sailed to many Pacific locations, including Japan, Hong Kong, the Philippines, Saigon, and Saigon in Vietnam. Mr. Bob Bunnell. Mr. J.J. Burens. J.J. Burens, Corporal, United States Army, Cold War and Vietnam. Location and service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from September 1960 to September of 1962. After basic training, J.J. went to Transportation Operator School in Port Eustis, Virginia. He served with the 714th Battalion in Verdun, France for 2 years as a locomotive operator with the Army Railroad. Mr. J.J. Burens. Charlie Dietzel. Charlie Dietzel, Airman Basic, Air Force, Cold War. Hometown location and service of Union City, Tennessee. Dates of service from October 1960 to December of 1960. Basic training in Lackland Air Force Base, Texas. Charlie was injured near the end of basic training and received an honorable medical discharge. Mr. Charlie Dietzel. Ken Duff. Can I get a transport chair up to the front, please? Hang on. Just a second, Mr. Ken.
Is that his chair?
Mr. Ken Duff, Airman 2nd Class, United States Air Force, Cold War. Location and service of Branson, Missouri. Dates of service from August 1957 to July of 1961. He took basic training at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas. Ken served as a weapons maintenance for the F-86 and F-100 fighter jets at Williams Air Force Base and Luke Air Force Base in Arizona. He was also stationed at Lowry Air Force Base in Denver, Colorado. Mr. Ken Duff. Bob Fernandez. Bob Fernandez, Seaman, United States Navy, World War II. Location entered service of San Jose, California. Dates of service from August 1941 to July of 1946. He took basic training in San Diego, California. Bob served the entirety of the war as a coxswain aboard the seaplane tender USS Curtis. On the morning of December 7, 1941, Bob was 17 years old and had recently finished basic training. He was aboard the Curtis in Pearl Harbor. Although the Curtis was hit, it was able to get underway and fire at incoming Japanese aircraft, downing one. There was bomb damage to the hangar deck, which caused a fire, leaving 19 sailors dead and many more wounded. As nighttime fell, Bob and several other crew members were stationed on the deck all night to guard the wreckage. After repairs, the Curtis transported men and supplies to bases in the South Pacific. The Curtis served at times as a flagship and provided support in many battles in the Pacific, including those in the Solomon Islands, Tarawa, Kwajalein, Saipan, and Guam. After some much-needed repairs from battle damage, the Curtis sailed to Okinawa to serve as a flagship for the commander of Fleet Air Wing 1. While in Okinawa on June 21, 1945, the Curtis was hit by a kamikaze. Although it managed to survive, her crew suffered heavy losses. 35 were killed and 21 more were wounded. Bob served several months after the end of the war and was discharged in 1946. Mr. Bob Fernandez. Julian Filateo. Mr. Filateo. Julian Filateo, Sergeant, United States Army, Cold War and Vietnam. Location entered service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from August 1959 to August of 1963. Took basic training at Fort Ward, California. Julian served with the 703rd Ordnance Company as a field radio repairman in Kinsingen, Germany. Mr. Julian Filateo. Mr. Dave Gilman. Dave Gilman, Chief Petty Officer, United States Navy and United States Air Force, Korea and Cold War. Location entered service of Tacoma, Washington. Dates of service from April 1951 to June of 1953, United States Navy, and from 1954 to 1958, United States Air Force. Basic training in San Diego, California. Dave served as an aviation ordnanceman with the 7th Fleet, Task Force 77, aboard the carrier USS Valley Forge. The Valley Forge supported troops in Korea and was stationed at times in Yokosuka, Japan. He also served stateside in the Naval Training Center in San Diego. He is the recipient of the Korean Service Medal with 4 stars, a United Nations Service Medal. He re-enlisted in the Air Force in 1954 and served as a structural aircraft mechanic at Forbes Field in Topeka, Kansas. He also served in the Naval Reserve until 1989. Mr. Dave Gilman. World War II, Korea, and Cold War vets, if your last name begins with G, H, L, and M, please start making your way up to my left, please. Mr. Michael Goodweiler.
Aaron, can you have her call the AV guy and turn this thing down just a touch? It's hot as shit.
Mr. Michael Goodweiler, Private First Class, United States Army, Cold War, and Vietnam. Location entered service of Los Angeles, California. Dates of service from February 1960 to February 1963. Took basic training at Fort Hood, Texas. After additional training at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, Michael served with the 507th Engineer Company as a mechanic at the Toul Army Base in Toul, France. Mr. Michael Goodweiler. Tim Haig. Mr. Tim Haig, are you in the room? He's making his way up right there. Mr. Tim Haig, Private First Class, United States Marine Corps, Cold War, and Vietnam. Location entered service of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Dates of service from March of 1959 to March of 1963. Took basic training at Marine Corps Recruit Depot, San Diego, California. Tim served with the 5th Marines as a combat swimming instructor. He was stationed stateside at Camp Pendleton, California, and overseas in Japan at Okinawa and Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Mr. Tim Haig. Doug Hartline. Doug Hartline, Sergeant, United States Marine Corps, Korea. Location and service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from April of 1953 to March of 1956. Took basic training in Marine Corps Creek Depot, San Diego. Doug served with the 1st Marine Division as a wireman and electrician. He was stationed in South Korea, south of the 38th parallel. He is the recipient of a Korean Service Medal and a United Nations Service Medal. Mr. Doug Hartline. Alvin Hennessy. Alvin Hennessy, Sergeant, United States Marine Corps, Korea and Cold War. Location entered service of Delano, California. Dates of service from March of 1954 to March of 1958. Basic training at Marine Corps Creek Depot, San Diego, California. Alvin served as a truck driver with the 1st Marine Division overseas at Munsan, Republic of Korea, from September of 1954 to April 1955. He was stationed stateside at Camp Pendleton and 29 Palms in California. He is the recipient of a Korean Service Medal and a United Nations Service Medal. Mr. Alvin Hennessy. Bob Henney. Bob Henney, Airman 2nd Class, United States Air Force, Cold War. Location and service of Los Angeles, California. Dates of service from May of 1957 to May of 1961. He took basic training in San Antonio, Texas. Bob served with the Military Air Transport Service as an AC and power plant mechanic, servicing many different aircraft platforms, including the Transport C-123. He was stationed stateside at Donaldson Air Force Base at Greenville, South Carolina, and Dreux Air Force Base in Dreux, France. He is the recipient of a Good Conduct Medal. Mr. Bob Henney. Herb Lyon. Herb Lyon, Petty Officer 2nd Class, United States Navy, Korea. Location and service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from January 1951 to January of 1955. Took basic training in San Diego, California. Herb was stationed in Bremerton, Washington, and served as an electronics technician, repairing shipboard electronics. Due to the Sullivan Act, he was not allowed to serve overseas because his older brother was also serving in Korea. Mr. Herb Lyon. World War II, Korea, and Cold War veterans, if your last name begins with the letter M, P, R, M, P, or R, please come up to the front, please. Please come up to the front, please. KJ Miller. KJ, are you in the room? KJ. We'll cover Mr. KJ Miller on our flight, on our return home. Norris. Then if someone sees KJ come in, please notify me and we'll get him up here to be recognized. I want to make sure that all of our veterans have that opportunity to be recognized. Mr. Norris Miller. Norris Miller, 1st Lieutenant, United States Army, Korea. Location and service of Fort Collins, Colorado. Dates of service from July 1953 to March 1955. Basic training at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Norris received his commission through the ROTC at Colorado A&M. He served in the 155th Artillery Battalion in Hanau, Germany, first as a forward observer, then as a personnel officer. He is the recipient of an Army of Occupation Medal for Germany. Mr. Norris Miller. Joaquin, Portugal. Joaquin, Portugal. Corporal, United States Army, Cold War. Location entered service of Oceanside, California. Dates of service from September 1958 to September 1960. He took basic training at Fort Ord, California. Joaquin served as a personnel clerk with the 62nd Engineer Battalion, 18th Brigade at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. Mr. Joaquin, Portugal. Marv Powers. I see it back there, Marv. I see it. Marv Powers, Petty Officer, 3rd Class, United States Navy, World War II. Hometown of Grand Island, New England. Dates of service from February 1946 to December 1947. He took basic training at Great Lakes, Illinois. Marv served continuous sea duty aboard the oiler USS Kennebec. He served in communications as a yeoman. The Kennebec carried fuel from Arabia to various bases in the Pacific and Atlantic post-war theaters. He is the recipient of a World War II Victory Medal. Mr. Marv Powers. Bill Root. Mr. Bill Root, Petty Officer, 3rd Class, United States Navy, World War II. Location entered service of Whittier, California. Dates of service from June 1943 to May of 1946. He took basic training at Farragut, Idaho. Bill trained as a radar technician. He was stationed at Virginia Beach, Virginia, then attached to a repair and salvage ship, USS Ocala. Bill was sent to a shipyard in Indiana where the Ocala was being built. The newly built Ocala traveled down the Mississippi through the Panama Canal to Honolulu. It then went to Okinawa at the end of the battle there in July of 1945. The Allies were preparing for the invasion of Japan. However, Japan surrendered after the atomic bombs were dropped in August. Bill served on the Ocala for 1 year. He is the recipient of a World War II Pacific Theater Medal, Mr. Bill Root. KJ Miller. KJ Miller, Petty Officer, 3rd Class, United States Navy, Cold War and Vietnam. Location entered service of Crookstown, Minnesota. Dates of service from January 1959 to January of 1963. He received basic training at San Diego, California. KJ served on the destroyer, the USS Fetch. How do we say that, KJ? Fetchteller? Close enough? How do you say the ship's name? Feckler. Never would have guessed that. Feckler. USS Feckler as a radioman. He was stationed at Long Beach and traveled to many locations in the Pacific on the Feckler. After his military service, he served as a Los Angeles County firefighter for 32 years, where KJ was deployed to aid rescue and recovery efforts after the terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001. Mr. KJ Miller. If your last name begins in the letter S or W, S or W, can you please make your way up to the left, please? Mike Schneider. Mike Schneider, Corporal, United States Marine Corps, Korea. Location entered service of Montebello, California. Dates of service from September 1954 to May of 1956. He received basic training at Marine Corps Recruit Depot, San Diego. Mike served as an aviation electronics technician and was stationed at Camp Pendleton and at several Marine Corps air stations, including Jacksonville, Florida, Memphis, Tennessee, and Mojave, California. Mr. Mike Schneider. Bob Schweiger. Bob Schweiger, Petty Officer, First Class, United States Navy, Cold War and Vietnam. Location entered service of Monroe, Wisconsin. Dates of service from June of 1958 to October of 1977. He received basic training at Great Lakes, Illinois. Over his long career, Bob served in many capacities. He served during the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1961. He was a parachute rigger and was also a crew chief for several different aircraft platforms, including the CH-46 helicopter, the P-2V-7 anti-submarine aircraft, and the H-34 anti-submarine helicopters. He was attached to the United States Navy's Flight Demonstration Squadron, better known as the Blue Angels, for 2 years from 1967 to 1969. Bob served aboard the carrier USS Iwo Jima in support of troops in Vietnam from 1969 to 1972. He was also in many different locations, including Puerto Rico and in Europe, and Rota, Spain, and Sigonella, Italy. He is the recipient of 4 Vietnam Service Medals. Mr. Bob Schweiger. Trenton Spears. Mr. Spears. Mr. Spears, are we in the room? No? All right, thank you. Mr. Jim Wirtz. Jim Wirtz, Specialist 4, United States Army, Cold War. Location entered service of Lincoln, Nebraska. Dates of service from February 1958 to February 1960. He received basic training at Fort Carson, Colorado. After initial training at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, and Huntsville, Alabama, Jim served as a Nike guided missile internal guidance repairman in Mainz, Germany. Mr. Jim Wirtz. Everett Williams. Everett Williams, Sergeant, United States Army Air Corps, World War II. Location entered service of Taft, California. Date of service from March of 1942 to December of 1947. He received basic training at the Fresno Fairgrounds, the Fresno County Fairgrounds. Everett received additional training in several different areas. He attended B-17 school in Texas at the Amarillo Airport. He also trained as an aerial photographer and a flight engineer at Denver, Colorado, and stayed on as a flight engineer instructor. He was then transferred to the 20th Air Force in the South Pacific. He was stationed on the Isle of Guam, but the air crews flew to the bases that had been established on many different Pacific islands. Everett served on the air crew of a B-29 bomber as a flight engineer, completing 27 bombing missions over Japan. He was awarded the high honor of a Distinguished Flying Cross for being on the first daylight mission over Tokyo. He is also the recipient of 2 air medals and a combat action ribbon. Mr. Everett Williams. So thank you very much. Mr. Williams was our last World War II Korea or Viet or World War II, Cold War, or Korean veteran. So with that, I would like to say a couple of notes about our morning tomorrow. So first things first is breakfast tomorrow is served at 5:30 a.m. 5:30 a.m. So when you come down out of your room tomorrow for our 5:30 a.m. breakfast, where the doors open at 5:30 a.m., not before, please bring all of your personal belongings with you. All of the things we're receiving tonight and everything you've acquired throughout this trip, please bring those things with you. We do not intend on returning to our rooms From breakfast, we will board our buses and we will never see this hotel again. Okay? If I have anything to say. I love this hotel. So, 5:30 a.m. for breakfast. 5:30 a.m. for breakfast. All of your personal belongings. Everything comes down. Guys, does that make sense? So some questions that might come out of that is, hey, what do I do with this really fancy room key? You can leave it in your room. You can leave it in your room. You can keep it as a souvenir. There's no need to retain that key. We're not going to turn them in. Once all of our rooms are vacated, I'll stop by the hotel desk and let them know Honor Flight Kern County is departing the pattern. Okay? So with that, all of our World War II, Korea, and Cold War era veterans, gentlemen, if you would like to leave, you are free to leave. But now, thank you. Now we will move into the Vietnam era portion of our program. Fred had a wonderful question. What time do we begin boarding our buses tomorrow? We begin boarding our buses tomorrow at 6:30 a.m. Our buses will be here. We do not depart till 7:10, and that's an appointment we cannot miss. The Capitol Police will come and they'll sweep our vehicles and will escort us over, so it's very important that we are on time tomorrow. So please take care of your brother or sister to your left or right. Make sure that we make it down tomorrow as a group so we can make our very important appointment tomorrow with the Congressman at the United States Capitol. Are there any questions before our World War II, Korea, or Cold War era veterans leave the room? Guys, good? All right, here we go. Our Vietnam era veterans. Vietnam era veterans, if your last name begins with the letter A or B, there was more too. I know the alphabet, guys, I'm sorry. A or B, please make your way up to my left. Cal Alsop. Cal Alsop. Petty Officer, 3rd Class, United States Navy, Vietnam. Location and service of Montclair, California. Dates of service from December 1965 to October of 1969. He received basic training in San Diego, California. Cal served in the 7th Fleet aboard the auxiliary ship, the USS Sacramento, as a boiler tender. The Sacramento supplied ships off the coast of Vietnam. He was also stationed at Bremerton, Washington. He is the recipient of a Vietnam Campaign Medal and a Vietnam Service Medal. Mr. Cal Alsop. Jens Anderson. Mr. Anderson, are you here? Did I pronounce your name correctly? Jens Anderson, Airman 1st Class, United States Air Force, Vietnam. Location and service of San Bernardino, California. Dates of service from September 1973 to September of 1976. Jens served with Detachment 12, 1st Combat Evaluation Group, Strategic Air Command as a ground radio communications repairman. He was stationed stateside at many bases, including Kessler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi, and Nevada at Hawthorne Army Depot and Nellis Air Force Base. He is the recipient of an Air Force Outstanding Unit Award, Mr. Jens Anderson. Philip Arenas. Philip Arenas, Corporal, United States Army National Guard, Vietnam. Army National Guard, Vietnam. Location and service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from September 1972 to April of 1979. He received basic training at Fort Polk, Louisiana. Philip served as a rifleman and a truck driver in the National Guard. Mr. Philip Arenas. Mr. Paul Asuncion. Paul Asuncion, Senior Airman, United States Air Force, Vietnam. Location and service of Wilmington, California. Dates of service from November 1965 to February of 1969. He received basic training at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas. Paul served as a medical laboratory specialist at Gunter Air Force Base in Alabama and in Texas at Carswell Air Force Base and Lackland Air Force Base. Mr. Paul Asuncion. Dan Bachtel. Dan Bachtel, Corporal, United States Marine Corps, Vietnam. Location entered service of Lakewood, California. Dates of service from October 1966 to May of 1969. Received basic training at Marine Corps Depot, San Diego, California. Dan served in reconnaissance with Special Forces in I Corps with the 5th Reconnaissance Battalion, 5th Marine Division in Vietnam for 13 months. He was stationed at the Con Thien and Go Linh. We're going to go with that. He was in the Battle of Hill 174 and the Tet Offensive. He spent 5 months in the hospital at Cam Ranh Bay, recovering from injuries. He is the recipient of the National Defense Service Medal, Vietnam Campaign Medal, Vietnam Service Medal with 2 Bronze Service Stars, a Presidential Unit Citation, a Combat Action Ribbon, and 3 Purple Hearts. Mr. Dan Bachtel. Mr. Tom Beck. Tom Beck, Specialist 5, United States Army, Vietnam. Location entered service of Burbank, California. Dates of service from March of 1966 to October of 1968. He received basic training at Fort Ord, California. Tom received AIT at Aberdeen Proving Grounds in Maryland. He served as a mechanic with the 9th Infantry in a mechanized company in France and Germany. He was also stationed in the Delta of Vietnam. He is the recipient of a Vietnam Service Medal with 2 overseas bars. Mr. Tom Beck. Mr. Don Bell. Don Bell, Sergeant, United States Army, Vietnam. Location entered service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from December of 1966 to September of 1969. Received basic training at Fort Ord, California. Don received additional training in Fort Lee, Virginia, and Fort Rucker, Alabama. He served in Kaiserslautern, Germany, as a petroleum products specialist with the 993rd Quartermaster Detachment Petroleum Products Lab. He was responsible for testing all fuels and oil and evaluating fuel samples from crash scenes. Mr. Don Bell. If your last name begins with the letter C or D, please make your way up to the front, please. C or D. Mr. Win Branscombe. Win Branscombe, Specialist 5, United States Army, Vietnam. Location entered service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from June 1969 to December of 1971. He received basic training at Fort Ord, California. Wynn served as an artillery surveyor with the 2nd Infantry Division, 7th Battalion, 17th Artillery at Camp Pelham in South Korea. He also served stateside at Fort Carson, Colorado, Fort Belvoir, Virginia, and Fort Lewis, Washington. Mr. Wynn Branscombe. Mr. Lonnie Brummett. We will read Mr. Brummett's biography tomorrow on our return trip home. Tomorrow. Mr. Benny Cammett. Benny Cammett, Petty Officer, 3rd Class, United States Navy, Vietnam. Location and service of Earlimar, California. Dates of service from December 1969 to November of 1973. He received basic training in San Diego, California. Benny served as a ship fitter, and his duties included welding, pipe fitting, and sheet metal fabrication. He was stationed in Long Beach on the hospital ship USS Repose. He was stationed overseas on the nuclear sub-titter USS Hunley at Polaris Point, Guam. His last duty station was at Bremerton, Washington. He is the recipient of a Meritorious Unit Commendation, Mr. Benny Cammett. Mr. Jim Cachero. Jim Cachero, Petty Officer, 3rd Class, United States Navy, Vietnam. Location and service of Salinas, California. Dates of service from September 1965 to September of 1967. Received basic training in San Diego, California. Jim served as a gunner's mate on 50-foot swift boats in the Brown Water Navy in Vietnam. He is the recipient of a Vietnam Service Medal with 1 star, Mr. Jim Cachero. Henry Castaneda. Henry Castaneda, Corporal, United States Army and National Guard, Vietnam. Location and service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from February 1973 to June of 1979. He received basic training at Fort Polk, California. Henry served in active duty for 5 months, and then he transferred to the California National Guard. Mr. Henry Castaneda. Roger Clay. Roger Clay, Tech Sergeant, United States Air Force, Vietnam. Location and service of Whitmore Lake, Michigan. Dates of service from December 1969 to September of 1979. He received basic training at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas. Roger served with the Strategic Air Command units as an aviation technician, repairing navigation and radar equipment. He was stationed at several stateside locations, including Kessler Air Force Base, Mississippi, Grand Forks Air Force Base in North Dakota, Norton Air Force Base in California, and in Michigan at Worth Smith Air Force Base and K.I. Sawyer Air Force Base. He was stationed overseas at the Utapao, Thailand, Royal Navy Airfield. I just tried to repeat what you said, sir. I really did. Did it work? He worked on many different aircraft, including KC-135s, B-52s, C-141s, C-5s, T-29s, and C-47s. He is the recipient of several awards, including an Air Force Commendation Medal and a Vietnam Service Medal, Mr. Roger Clay. Mr. Charlie Connor. Charlie Connor, Sergeant, United States Air Force, Vietnam. Location and service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from July 1965 to October 1969. He received basic training at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas. After additional training at Shepherd Air Force Base in Texas, Charlie served as a communications center specialist at the Strategic Air Command Headquarters of Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska. He was then transferred to Karamursa Air Base in Turkey. I've never been to Turkey. Where he served as the non-commissioned officer in command sergeant for the base telephone and switchboard operations. He is the recipient of an Outstanding Unit Award, Mr. Charlie Connor. Now, I would just like to say really quickly, thank you very much for hanging with me on this. I've never been to Thailand. These Thai pronunciations are gonna mess me up here. So feel free to, this is an interactive program. If you know how to say it and I don't, let me have it. But just remember, there's a guy up here with a microphone, and I'm pretty quick-witted. I might get you back. Charlie, are we with Mr. Connor? We finished, Mr. Connor? Thank you very much. Mr. Nick Damien. Nick Damien, Specialist 5, United States Army, Vietnam. Location area service of Tehachapi, California. Dates of service from February 1970 to March of 1973. He received basic training at Fort Ord, California. Nick served with the 532nd Personnel Service Company in Ben Hoa in Vietnam. He is the recipient of a Vietnam Service Medal and the Vietnam Campaign Medal. Mr. Nick Damien. Dan DePeace. Dan DePeace, Petty Officer, First Class, United States Navy, Vietnam and Desert Storm. Location entered service of Downey, California. Dates of service from July 1970 to February 1971, January 1972 to September 1974, and January 1991 to April of 1997. He received basic training in Memphis, Tennessee. Dan did several tours of duty over his long career, and he was attached to Air Wings. He served in aircraft maintenance, served on air crews, and managed airframe shops. He was in many locations, including in California at Naval Air Station Los Alamitos, Naval Air Station Miramar, North Island, and Naval Air Station Alameda. He was also at Naval Air Station Whidbey Island, Memphis, Tennessee, and Great Lakes, Illinois. He was stationed overseas at Naval Air Station in Kubi Point, Philippines, Da Nang Air Base in Vietnam, and Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. He was also on many carriers in the Tonkin Gulf, including the USS Ranger, USS Midway, USS Saratoga, and the USS Nimitz. He is the recipient of a Vietnam Service Medal with 4 campaign stars. Mr. Dan DePeace. If your last name begins with the letter E or F or G, E, F, or G, please make your way to the front, please. Please make your way to the front. Mike DeCant. Mr. Mike DeCant, Specialist 4, United States Army, Vietnam. Location and service of Taft, California. Dates of service from August 1969 to April of 1971. He received basic training at Fort Ord, California. Mike served with the 518th Engineer Detachment as an oxygen, acetylene, and nitro product specialist in the Long Binh, Vietnam. He also served at the Army Admin Center in St. Louis, Missouri. He is the recipient of a Vietnam Service Medal and a Vietnam Campaign Medal. Mr. Mike DeCant. Gerald Essen. Gerald Essen, Staff Sergeant, United States Army and National Guard, Vietnam. Location and service of Modesto, California. Dates of service from October 1966 to March of 1967. He received basic training at Fort Ord, California. After AIT at Fort Knox, Kentucky, Gerald served as an Armor Intelligence Specialist with the 1st Army. He then transferred to the National Guard and served until 1972. Mr. Gerald Essen. Mr. Raul Felix. Raul Felix, Sergeant, United States Army, Vietnam. Location and service of Los Angeles, California. Dates of service from November 1967 to November of 1969. He received basic training at Fort Ord, California. Raul served in the infantry in Vietnam near Saigon. He was in Company A, 1st Battalion, 29th Infantry, 196th Infantry Brigade. He is the recipient of a Vietnam Service Medal with two overseas bars, an Army Commendation with a V device for valor, a Vietnam Service Medal with 2 bronze stars, an Air Medal, and a Purple Heart. Mr. Raul Felix. Mr. Will Flickinger. Mr. Flickinger. All right. While Mr. Flickinger's making his way up, we'll come back to him really quickly. Mr. Leonard Gabriel. Leonard Gabriel, Petty Officer, 2nd Class, United States Navy, Vietnam. Location entered service of Delano, California. Dates of service from March of 1971 to February of 1981. He received basic training in San Diego, California. Leonard served as a supply storekeeper. He first served on the guided missile destroyer of the USS Decatur on a Westpac from Long Beach to the Gulf of Tonkin near Vietnam. He returned stateside and was stationed for a year at Sandpoint Naval Base in Seattle, Washington. In 1979, he returned to sea duty aboard the destroyer of the USS Kern, which was home ported at Charleston, South Carolina, before being discharged in 1981. Petty Officer, 1st Class, pardon me. Thank you, sir, I appreciate that. Mr. Leonard Gabriel. Mr. Will Flickinger. Will Flickinger, Captain, United States Army, Vietnam. Hometown and location in service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from February 1962 to February of 1964. He received basic training at Fort Sam Houston in Texas. Will entered the Army via the ROTC at Bakersfield College and then completed his dentistry degree at the University of California at Los Angeles and USC. He was drafted for the Berlin crisis, but was sent to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, where he served as a dentist. Mr. Will Flickinger. Pat Gaines. Pat Gaines, Seaman, United States Navy, Vietnam. Location entered service of Monrovia, California. Dates of service from August 1967 to May of 1971. He received basic training at Great Lakes, Illinois. Pat served in Navy shipbuilding at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. He then served aboard the destroyer USS Corey as a boatswain's mate. The Corey spent 6 months in several locations in the Mediterranean Sea. Mr. Pat Gaines. If your last name begins with the letter H, please make your way up to the front. Last name begins with the letter H, please make your way up to the front. Thomas Gamblin. Thomas Gamblin, Petty Officer, 3rd Class, United States Navy, Vietnam. Location entered service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from June of 1970 to June of 1973. He received basic training in San Diego, California. Thomas served in the Seabees as a construction mechanic for heavy equipment. He was stationed at Port Hueneme and overseas at Guam. Mr. Thomas Gamblin. Jerry Griffin. Jerry Griffin, Sergeant, United States Marine Corps, Vietnam. Location entered service of Glendale, California. Dates of service from July 1970 to July of 1974. He received basic training at Marine Corps Recruit Depot, San Diego, California. Jerry served in the 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing, Squadron VMGR 352 as a KC-130 air tanker propeller mechanic. He was stationed at Marine Air Station El Toro in California. He is the recipient of a meritorious unit commendation. Mr. Jerry Griffin. Ross Hampton. Ross Hampton, Petty Officer, 2nd Class, United States Navy, Vietnam. Location entered service of Early Mart, California. Dates of service from November 1966 to September 1968. He received basic training in San Diego, California. Ross served aboard the destroyer tender USS Bryce Canyon in many Pacific locations, including Subic Bay in the Philippines, Hong Kong, Pearl Harbor, Japan, and Taiwan. He worked as a shipfitter and often had to repair battle damage and other needed repairs to other ships. He was also stationed stateside at Long Beach. Mr. Ross Hampton. Thomas Harris. Thomas Harris, Chief Petty Officer, United States Navy, Vietnam. Location entered service of Plainsville, Ohio. Dates of service from November 1960 to April of 1981. He received basic training at Great Lakes, Illinois. Over his long career, Thomas served with the communications team as a radioman. He served on several ships in the Atlantic and in the Pacific. He was also stationed at several land bases. He served on the dock landing ship USS Fort Snelling, the minesweeper USS Conquest, and his last duty station was the frigate USS Wadsworth, where he served as the assistant communications officer. He was in many Pacific locations, including the Philippines and Japan. He was stationed stateside in California, at the Naval Training Center in San Diego, and San Nicolas Island. He is the recipient of a National Defense Service Medal, Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal, and the Naval Expeditionary Medal, Mr. Thomas Harris. Thomas Harris. Will Harder. Will Harder, Seaman, United States Coast Guard, Vietnam. Location entered service of Chico, California. Dates of service from August 1971 to August of 1975. He received basic training at Alameda, California. Will served as an explosive loading supervisor at Port Chicago, California. He also served as a clerk and as a seaman on the 82-foot Point class cutters. He was stationed in California at Government Island, Buena Vista Island, Fort Bragg, and Bodega Bay. In New York, he was also stationed at Governor's Island. He is the recipient of a Coast Guard Unit Commendation, Mr. Will Harder. Richard Hayes. Richard Hayes, Specialist 4, United States Army, Vietnam. Location entered service of Cudahy, California. Dates of service from November of 1968 to November of 1970. He received basic training at Fort Ord, California. Richard served as a sheet metal worker for a helicopter repair at New Cumberland Army Depot in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. He was also stationed overseas in Germany for 6 months. He is the recipient of an Army Unit Commendation, Mr. Richard Hayes. Daryl Hennessy. Daryl Hennessy, Sergeant, United States Marine Corps, Vietnam. Location entered service of Delano, California. Dates of service from October 1974 to October of 1978. He received basic training at Marine Corps Recruit Depot, San Diego, California. Daryl served with the 1st Marine Division, 7th Marines for 1 year as a military police officer and 3 years in the infantry. He was stationed at Adak, Alaska, and Camp Pendleton, California. He also served aboard the maiden voyage of the amphibious assault ship USS Tarawa, Mr. Daryl Hennessy. Now, Daryl, if I'm not mistaken, you're also here with your father, who's a Korean War veteran. This is the first time in my life I've had that experience where a father comes as a Korean War veteran and we have a Vietnam veteran. That's incredible. And what? I was born at Camp Pendleton. And he was born at Camp Pendleton, California. Marine through and through. Mr. Jim Herbaugh. Jim Herbaugh, Specialist 4, United States Army in Vietnam. Location entered service of Los Angeles, California. Dates of service from October 1963 to August of 1965. He received basic training at Fort Ord, California. Jim served with the 44th Engineer Company as a carpenter in Korea with the Army Support Command. He was also stationed stateside at Fort Ord, California, Mr. Jim Herbaugh. Jim Higgs. Mr. Jim Higgs, Sergeant, United States Air Force, Vietnam. Location entered service of Westminster, California. Dates of service from November of 1968 to October of 1972. He received basic training at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas. Jim served as a crew chief and mechanic on C-130 transport aircraft. He was stationed at Dyess Air Force Base in Abilene, Texas. He was also stationed overseas in Taiwan and in Vietnam at Cam Ranh Bay, Mr. Jim Higgs. Larry Hoos. Larry, are we in the room? All right, Larry, we'll talk to you tomorrow on the airplane. Tomorrow on the airplane. Mr. Chuck Humphreys. Chuck Humphreys, Lance Corporal, United States Marine Corps, Vietnam. Location entered service of Sunnyvale, California. Dates of service from April 1969 to November of 1970. He received basic training at Marine Corps Recruit Depot, San Diego, California. Chuck served with the 2nd Battalion's 1st Marines in communications as a radio wireman. He was stationed near Hoi An in Vietnam. He is the recipient of a Vietnam Campaign Medal with device and a Vietnam Service Medal with 1 star, Mr. Chuck Humphreys. If your last name begins with the letter J, K, or L, please make your way to the front, please. Mr. Huey Jernigan.
It's not the first time and it won't be the last, that's for sure.
Huey Jernigan, are we in the room? All right. All right. While Mr. Jernigan's making his way to the front, we'll continue with Mr. John Kowalski. John Kowalski, Specialist, United States Army, Vietnam. Location entered service of Wilmington, California. Dates of service from September 1971 to September 1974. He received basic training at Fort Ord, California. John served in the 3rd Infantry, 10th Engineer Battalion, Echo Company as a power bridge specialist. He was stationed stateside at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and overseas at Kinzinger, Germany. Mr. John Kowalski. Mr. Huey Jernigan. Huey Jernigan, Seaman Recruit, United States Navy, Vietnam. Location entered service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from October to November of 1962. He received basic training at San Diego, California. Huey was injured during basic training and received a medical discharge. Mr. Huey Jernigan. Gary Knight. Mr. Gary Knight, Petty Officer, 3rd Class, United States Navy, Vietnam. Location entered service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from January 1967 to November of 1970. Received basic training in San Diego, California. Gary served with the 7th Fleet aboard the carrier USS Kitty Hawk. He was an engineman and tended the emergency engines. The Kitty Hawk was deployed off the shore of Vietnam and North Korea. He was also stationed stateside at Bremerton, Washington. He is the recipient of the National Defense Medal, Vietnam Service Medal, Vietnam Campaign Medal, and the Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal for Korea, Mr. Gary Knight. Mr. Clay Corner. Clay Corner, Specialist 4, United States Army, Vietnam. Location entered service of Reseda, California. Dates of service from April 1966 to January of 1968. He received basic training at Fort Bliss, Texas. Clay served in the information office as a writer at Fort Ord and at Fort Hood, Texas, where he served as a reporter for the base newspaper, Mr. Clay Corner. Harold Kuntz. Harold Kuntz, Specialist 4, United States Army, Vietnam. Location entered service of Simi Valley, California. Dates of service from July 1967 to July of 1970. He received basic training at Fort Bliss, Texas. After AIT at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, Harold served with the 2nd Armored Division at Fort Hood, Texas. He was also stationed in the Central Highlands of Vietnam and served as a combat construction engineer with the 937th Engineer Group, which was attached to the 4th Infantry Division. He was in Vietnam during the Tet Offensive and is the recipient of a Vietnam Service Medal with 1 Silver Service Star, which denotes 5 campaign stars. Mr. Harold Kuntz. If your last name begins with the letter M, please make your way up to the front, please. Last name with the letter M, please make your way up to the front, please. Mr. Gene Lundquist. Gene Lundquist, Specialist 5, United States Army, Vietnam. Location entered service of Bakersfield, California. He received basic training at Fort Gordon, Georgia. Gene served at Fort Gordon, Georgia as an information specialist and a clerk typist. He is the recipient of an Army Commendation Medal, Mr. Gene Lundquist. Mr. Ricardo Magdaleno. Ricardo Magdaleno, Sergeant 1st Class, United States Army, Vietnam. Location entered service of Pacoima, California. Dates of service from August 1972 to August of 1994. Over his 22-year career, Ricardo served in the infantry in the 2nd Armored Division, in the 8th Infantry Division, in the 2nd Infantry Division, and in the 7th Infantry Division. He was stationed at many locations stateside, including Fort Hood, Texas, Fort Ord, and Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. He was stationed overseas at Camp Casey, that's in South Korea, Baumholder, Germany, and Camp Jackson in South Korea. He was a drill sergeant at Fort Ord from 1983 to 1985. He is the recipient of several awards, including 3 Meritorious Service Medals, 3 Army Commendation Medals, 3 Army Achievement Medals, 2 Overseas Service Ribbons, and an NCO Professional Development Ribbon with commendation, Mr. Ricardo Magdaleno. Jim Mannion. Mr. Jim Mannion, Senior Airman, United States Air Force, Vietnam. Location entered service of South Bend, Indiana. Dates of service from August 1961 to December of 1965. He received basic training at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas. Jim served in the Air Force Communications Service as an electronic and crypto service systems repairman. He was stationed stateside at the Gentile Air Force Station in Ohio. He was stationed overseas at Kadena Air Force Base in Okinawa, then temporary duty in Tan Son Nhut in Vietnam. Tan Son Nhut? Tan Son Nhut. I'm just going to repeat after the general. Thank you, sir. In Vietnam, and finally transferred to the Air Force Intelligence Listening Station at Kara Mursal Air Base in Turkey. Mr. Jim Mannion. Homer Martinez. Homer Martinez, Petty Officer, 3rd Class, United States Navy, Vietnam. Location entered service of Los Angeles, California. Dates of service from July 1971 to June of 1975. He received basic training in San Diego, California. Homer served aboard the ammunition ship USS Mount Hood as a cargo elevator electrician and a transfer winch electrician. While on board the Mount Hood, he took Westpacks to many Pacific locations, including the Philippines and Subic Bay. As it also took part in operations in the Gulf of Tonkin, in the waters offshore of Vietnam, and assisted in the evacuation of Saigon in 1965. He was also stationed stateside at the Naval Weapons Station in Concord, California. He is the recipient of a Vietnam Service Medal, a Meritorious Unit Commendation, and a Humanitarian Service Award, Mr. Homer Martinez. Mr. Tom Mason. Tom Mason, Sergeant, United States Army, Vietnam. Location entered service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from July 1969 to February of 1972. Received basic training in Fort Ord, California. Tom received his AIT at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and served in an armored company in Freiburg, Germany for 6 months. He was transferred to the infantry in Vietnam with the 25th Infantry Division at Cu Chi for 6 months. He was then moved to the 300th Military Police Company and served as a military policeman, 6 months in Chu Lao and 6 months in Long Binh. He is the recipient of a Vietnam Service Medal with 2 stars, a Vietnam Campaign Medal, and an Army Commendation Medal, Mr. Tom Mason. James McCord. James McCord, Lance Corporal, United States Marine Corps, Vietnam. Location entered service of Warren, Michigan. Dates of service from September 1961 to January of 1966. He received basic training at Marine Corps Recruit Depot, San Diego. After additional training in Memphis, Tennessee, James served as a structural aircraft mechanic. He was responsible for aircraft maintenance, including pre-flight safety checks and aircraft startups with pilots before takeoff. James served overseas in many different Pacific locations, including the Philippines and Okinawa, and also aboard 2 different aircraft carriers. His last duty station was with 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing in El Toro, California, Mr. James McCord. Charles Meyer. Charles Meyer, Captain, United States Air Force, Vietnam. Location entered service of Stratford, California. Dates of service from July of 1961 to December of 1966. He received basic training at Harlingen Air Force Base in Texas. Charles worked as a navigator on C-121 to C-130 aircraft, which were supply and troop transports. He served with the 41st Air Transport Squadron, 437th Military Airlift Command, and flew to locations all over the world. He was stationed in Vietnam at Tan Son Nhut, at Saigon, and at the Da Nang Air Base. He was stationed stateside at Charleston Air Force Base in South Carolina, Steed Air Force Base in Nevada. He is the recipient of several awards, including an Air Force Outstanding Unit Award and an Air Force Expeditionary Medal for Cuba. Mr. Charles Meyer. Mr. Lee Meyer. Lee Meyer, Captain, United States Air Force, Vietnam. Location entered service of Fredericksburg, Texas. Dates of service from August 1963 to August of 1967. He received his basic training at the ROTC at Texas A&M Cadet Corps. Lee served at the Air Force Systems Command at Edwards Air Force Base. He is the recipient of a Missileman Badge and an Outstanding Unit Award. His brother spent 5.5 years in captivity as a prisoner of war in North Vietnam. Mr. Lee Meyer. If your last name begins with the letter O or P, please make your way to the front. O or P, please make your way to the front. Mr. Steve Miles. Steve Miles, Staff Sergeant, United States Marine Corps, Vietnam. Location entered service of Encinitas, California. Dates of service from October 1971 to April of 1977. He received basic training in San Diego, California. Steve served as an air traffic controller at several Marine Corps air stations. Stateside, he was stationed at Marine Corps Air Station Santa Ana, Naval Air Station Memphis in Tennessee, Naval Air Station at Glencoe, Georgia, and Marine Corps Air Station at Beaufort, South Carolina. Overseas, he was stationed at Marine Corps Air Station in Iwakuni, Japan, and Vieques, Puerto Rico. Mr. Steve Miles. Terry Moore. Mr. Terry Moore, First Lieutenant, United States Army, Vietnam. Location entered service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from January 1966 to January of 1969. He received basic training at Fort Bliss, Texas. Terry served as a chemical officer at the U.S. Army Headquarters Combat Arms Group at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. He was also stationed at Fort Ord, California, Fort Benning, Georgia, Fort Polk, Louisiana, and Fort McClellan in Alabama. Mr. Terry Moore. Mr. Steve Ornalis. Steve Ornalis, Sergeant, United States Air Force, Vietnam. Location Air and Service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from February 1963 to February of 1967. He received basic training at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas. Steve served as an administrative clerk with the 355th Tactical Fighter Wing, 357th TAC Fighter Squadron. He was stationed stateside at George Air Force Base in California, Fort McConnell Air Force Base in Kansas. He was stationed overseas at many locations, including Kadena Air Base in Okinawa, Korat Air Base in Thailand, Yokota Air Base, Japan, Hickam Air Force Base in Hawaii, Midway Air Base in Anderson Air Base in Guam, and Clark Air Base in the Philippines. He is the recipient of an Air Force unit citation. Mr. Steve Ornalis. Mr. Larry Owen. Larry Owen, Staff Sergeant, United States Marine Corps, Vietnam. Location Air and Service of Taft, California. Dates of service from September 1968 to December of 1971. He received basic training at San Diego, California. Larry served with the 3rd Reconnaissance Battalion, 3rd Marine Division. He was stationed stateside at Marine Air Base El Toro in California and then transferred to Camp Schwab, Okinawa. He was stationed at Da Nang in Vietnam, where he took part in reconnaissance missions. He then returned to California to Marine Barracks Long Beach, followed by recruiting duty in Pasadena. Mr. Larry Owen. So Major General Seeley just made a comment here that he commanded the very same unit that he served with in Vietnam. That's 3rd Reconnaissance Battalion, 3rd Marine Division. That's incredible. Storied history for that battalion. Mr. Al Parrish. Mr. Al Parrish. I see you. Al Parrish, Sergeant, United States Army, Vietnam. Location Air Service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from June of 1973 to June of 1976. He received basic training at Fort Ord, California. After basic training, Al was stationed at the Army Security Agency at Fort Devens, Massachusetts. He was then he went to supply school in Fort Dix, New Jersey. He served as a radio intercept in supply and with a legal battalion as a clerk. Al served overseas with the 2nd Infantry Division at Camp Casey in Korea. He was stationed stateside at Fort Meade, Maryland with the 630th Medical Unit Airborne. He is the recipient of an Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal. Mr. Al Parrish. Mr. Fred Pollard, are you in the room? And may I have veterans with the last name beginning with the letter R make their way up to the front? Veterans with the last name beginning with the letter R, please make your way to the front. Mr. Fred Pollard, Staff Sergeant, United States Army and Army Reserves, Vietnam and Gulf War. Location entered service of Los Angeles, California. Dates of service from February 1973 to January of 1976, United States Army, and then 1983 to 1997 in the Army Reserve. He received basic training at Fort Knox, Kentucky. Fred served as a truck driver with the 2nd Division in Stuttgart, Germany. He then transferred to the reserves and served until his retirement in 1997. He was called up during the Gulf War and served in the Middle East. He was a part of the 700 truck convoy that was sent into the desert in Kuwait to defeat the Iraqi forces of Saddam Hussein. His truck carried components of a medical unit for the 3rd Army Division. He later hauled prisoners of war from Iraq to Saudi Arabia. He is the recipient of several awards, including a National Defense Service Medal with 1 Bronze Star and a Southwest Asia Service Medal with 1 Bronze Star. Mr. Fred Pollard. Felix Ramirez. Making his way up right now. Felix Ramirez, Private First Class, United States Army and California National Guard, post-Vietnam. Location area service of Gridley, California. Dates of service from February 1981 to February 1984, Marine Corps, and May 1992 to April of 2002, National Guard. He received basic training at Marine Corps Crew Depot, San Diego, California. Felix served with the 3rd Force Service Support Group, 1st Marine Division in Supply Administration as an operations specialist. He was stationed stateside at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and Camp Pendleton, California. He was stationed overseas at Okinawa, at Camp Kinser, and Camp Hansen. He also served for several years in the National Guard and was called to service in 1992 for the Los Angeles riots, in 1994 for the Northridge earthquake, and in 2002 for Operation Noble Eagle. Mr. Felix Ramirez. Gary Randall. Gary Randall, Sergeant, United States Air Force, Vietnam. Location entered service of San Diego, California. Dates of service from August 1964 to January of 1968. He received basic training in Lackland Air Force Base in Texas. Gary served as an inventory management specialist and was stationed stateside at England Air Force Base, Louisiana, and overseas at Aviano Air Force Base in Italy. Mr. Gary Randall. Richard Rangel. Mr. Richard Rangel, Petty Officer, First Class, United States Navy, Vietnam. Location entered service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from May 1969 to August of 1989. He received basic training in San Diego, California. Throughout his 20-year career, Richard served as a yeoman and was stationed in many different locations, including duty aboard the amphibious transport dockship USS Cleveland. He was stationed overseas in Spain at Naval Air Station Rota and in Hawaii at the Naval Telecommunications Center at Camp Smith. He was stationed in California and San Diego and Naval Air Station Moffett Field. He is the recipient of a Navy Achievement Medal, Meritorious Unit Commendation, a Vietnam Service Medal, and 2 Vietnam Campaign Service Medals. Mr. Richard Rangel. Mr. John Rahard. Mr. Rahard, we will talk to you on the airplane tomorrow afternoon. Now, if we've got a nickname in quotations, we know that's important. Mr. Edward Big Red Reith. Big Red Reith. Petty Officer, 3rd Class, United States Navy, Vietnam. Location entered service of Anaheim, California. Dates of service from January 1973 to October 1974. He received basic training in San Diego, California. Edward served as a fireman with the Pacific Fleet aboard the USS carrier Kitty Hawk. Edward was stationed at North Island Naval Air Station in San Diego. He was deployed to the South Pacific aboard the Kitty Hawk. A fire erupted aboard the Kitty Hawk on December 11, 1973, which claimed 6 lives and injured 38, including Edward, who was flown to Long Beach Naval Hospital to undergo surgery. The Kitty Hawk was towed to the Philippines to receive major repair. He is the recipient of Navy Unit Commendation and the National Defense Service Medal. Mr. Edward Reith. Steve Romero. Steve Romero, Corporal, United States Army, Vietnam. Location and service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from June 1967 to June of 1973. He received basic training at Fort Polk, Louisiana. Steve served in the infantry with 1st Cav. He was stationed in Vietnam at Da Nang and was there during the Tet Offensive. He was also stationed stateside at Fort McPherson, Georgia. He is the recipient of a Vietnam Service Medal with 3 stars, a Vietnam Campaign Service Medal with device, and a Combat Infantryman's Badge, Mr. Steve Romero. Mr. Rick Rue. Rick Rue, Petty Officer 2nd Class, United States Navy, Vietnam. Location entered service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from December 1968 to September of 1974. He received basic training in San Diego, California. Rick served as a sonar technician on the Sherman-class destroyer USS Edson. While on board the Edson, Rick participated in 2 Westpac tours to Vietnam, providing support to troops on shore. He is the recipient of a Vietnam Service Medal with 1 Bronze Star and a Meritorious Unit Commendation, Mr. Rick Rue. If your last name begins with the letter S, will you please make your way over to the left here? Last name beginning with the letter S. Mr. Jesus Rubinal. Lance Corporal, United States Marine Corps, Vietnam. Location entered service of Lamont, California. Dates of service from June 1967 to April of 1969. He received basic training at Camp Pendleton, California. Jesus served in the 3rd Marine Division, 3rd Marines, 3rd Reconnaissance Battalion. In Vietnam, he was stationed in the I Corps and ran 5-man recon patrols, setting radio relays and calling in airstrikes. He was in Vietnam during the Tet Offensive and in several locations, including Quai Trang, Khe Sanh, Hue, and Da Nang. He is the recipient of a Vietnam Service Medal, a Vietnam Campaign Medal, and a Navy Achievement Medal with a Combat V device for valor, Mr. Jesus Rubinal. Mr. Ralph Ruiz. Ralph Ruiz, Specialist for United States Army, Vietnam. Location entered service of Early Mark, California. Dates of service from March of 1968 to March of 1970. He received basic training at Fort Ord, California. Ralph served in the Light Weapons Infantry in Vietnam and was stationed at the Phu Bai base near Hue. He was stationed stateside with the 70th Armor, 24th Infantry Division at Fort Riley, Kansas. He is the recipient of a Vietnam Campaign Medal with device, a Vietnam Service Medal, and an Army Commendation Medal, Mr. Ralph Ruiz. Mr. Ken Schultz. Ken Schultz, Sergeant, United States Army, Vietnam. Location entered service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from February 1967 to December of 1971. He received basic training at Fort Ord, California. Ken served as a military policeman with the 348th Military Police Company, first in active duty, then he transferred to the Army Reserve. Mr. Ken Schultz. Mr. Paul Shackelford. Paul Shackelford, Sergeant, United States Air Force, Vietnam. Hometown location entered service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from November of 1971 to December of 1974. He received basic training at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas. After additional training at Lowry Air Force Base in Colorado, Paul served in supply as a material facilities specialist. He also served at Hamilton Air Force Base in California and Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. Mr. Paul Shackelford. May I have the veterans with the last name that begin with the letter T, please make... Please make your way to the front. The veterans with the last name beginning with the letter T, please make your way to the front. Mr. Chuck Stobie. Chuck Stobie, Staff Sergeant, United States Air Force, Vietnam. Location entered service of Reedley, California. Dates of service from May of 1971 to January of 1975. He received basic training at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas. Chuck served with the 295 2nd Combat Logistics Support Squadron in avionics maintenance and radio repair. He was stationed stateside at Luke Air Force Base, Arizona, and Hill Air Force Base in Utah. He was overseas at Korat Air Force Base in Thailand and Bitburg Air Force Base in Germany. He is the recipient of an Air Force Commendation Medal and an Air Force Outstanding Unit Award. Mr. Chuck Stobie. Veterans with the last name that begins with the letter T and U and V. Please make your way to the front. T, U, and V. Mr. Dwayne Thompson. Dwayne Thompson, Petty Officer, 3rd Class, United States Navy, Vietnam. Location and service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from July 1972 to June of 1976. He received basic training in San Diego, California. Dwayne served as a sonar technician on the destroyers, the USS Agerholm. Did I get that right? Agerholm. That was a guess. Agerholm and the USS Carpenter. He was stationed stateside in San Diego and Alameda and deployed on Westpacs to Vietnam. Mr. Dwayne Thompson. Mr. Ron Tolliver. Ron Tolliver, Petty Officer, 3rd Class, United States Navy, Vietnam. Location and service of Ridgecrest, California. Dates of service from October of 1972 to October of 1975. He received basic training in San Diego, California. Ron served with the Jolly Rogers at BF 103 as an aviation storekeeper. He was stationed stateside in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and served on the carriers USS America and USS Saratoga on Mediterranean deployments to Turkey, Spain, and Italy, and also to Guantanamo Bay in Cuba. Mr. Ron Tolliver. Randy Turman. Randy Turman, Specialist 4, United States Army, Vietnam. Location entered service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from July 1973 to July of 1976. He received basic training at Fort Ord, California. Randy served as a military policeman with the 296th Military Police Company at Fort Lewis, Washington, the 110th Military Police Company at Camp Ames, Korea, and the 571st Military Police Company at Fort Ord. Mr. Randy Turman. Steve Erner. Steve Erner, Senior Airman, United States Air Force, Vietnam. Location entered service of Bakersfield, California. Dates of service from September 1966 to August of 1970. He received basic training at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas. Steve served at Ent Air Force Base in Colorado Springs, Colorado, in the fire department, in crash and rescue and support services. For a short time, he was a recreational specialist and ran the gym at NORAD in the Cheyenne Mountain Complex in Colorado. Mr. Steve Erner. May I have all of our W's up here to the front? And Mr. Mark Valdivina. Mark Valdivina, are you in the room? And then may all of our veterans with the last name beginning with the letter W, make your way to the front, please. Mark Valdivina, Petty Officer, 3rd Class, United States Navy, Vietnam. Location entered service of Los Angeles, California. Dates of service from July 1988 to June of 1972. He received basic training in San Diego, California. Mark served as an engineman repairing refrigeration small boat engines and pumps. He served stateside at Mare Island Shipyard in Vallejo, California. He served aboard an oiler and fuel ship, the USS Kennebec, in the South Pacific during Vietnam and Japan. He was also deployed on the subtender USS Proteus in the Pacific near Guam. He is the recipient of a Vietnam Service Medal, an Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal, and a Meritorious Unit Commendation, Mr. Mark Valdivina. Henry Wade. Mr. Henry Wade, Staff Sergeant, United States Army, Vietnam. Location and service of North Hollywood, California. Dates of service from August 1973 to March of 1977. Received basic training at Fort Ord, California. Henry served as an aircraft mechanic. He was stationed stateside at Fort Eustis, Virginia, and Fort Carson, Colorado. He was also stationed overseas at Heidelberg, Germany. He is the recipient of an Army Commendation Medal, Mr. Henry Wade. Mr. Phil Wong. Phil Wong, Sergeant, United States Army, Vietnam. Hometown location entered service of Lancaster, California. Dates of service from November of 1965 to November 1968. He received basic training at Fort Ord, California. After advanced training at Fort Polk, Louisiana, Phil served in Vietnam with the 1st Cav in the jungles of the Central Highlands. In November of 1967, he was in the Battle of Dak To. At the end of his tour in Vietnam, he was transferred to Fort Ord and served as a food inspector. He is the recipient of a Vietnam Service Medal, an Air Medal, a Combat Infantryman's Badge, and a Purple Heart, Mr. Phil Wong. Mr. Jim Welch went up to his room earlier. We will meet with him tomorrow on our airplane ride home. Last, but certainly not least, is Mr. Ron Wells. Mr. Ron Wells, Staff Sergeant, United States Army, Vietnam. Location entered service of Navasota, Texas. Dates of service from July of 1966 to July 12th, 1968. He received basic training at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Ron served in the infantry with the 1st Infantry Division in Vietnam at base Camp Lai Kay. He took part in the search and destroy missions, ambush, patrol, road clearing, and intelligence. After his tour in Vietnam, he was an instructor at Fort Benning, Georgia. He is the recipient of a Vietnam Service Medal with 2 stars, a Vietnam Campaign Service Medal with device, a Combat Infantryman's Badge, a Bronze Star, and a Purple Heart, Mr. Ron Wells.
I think maybe we can pick them up and hand them out individually to the guardians. Can we do that?
Thank you very much. Can everyone have a seat, please? Can I have all of my bus leaders and my bus assistants up to the front, please? Bus leaders and bus assistants.
We have a round of applause for Matt. He did a great job.
Bus leaders and assistants, can you come over on this side, please? So one thing about Honor Flight 50 that I wanted, that we discussed as a board of directors was that Honor Flight 50 is an incredible, the 50th flight for this organization is an incredible milestone. As such, we commissioned a coin specifically for this flight, specifically for Honor Flight 50, to commemorate Honor Flight 50. So I know it's difficult to see from here, but on the front we have our Honor Flight logo that says honoring American veterans, or America's veterans. And on the reverse side of the coin, we have an American flag with our services around the border and the bold number 50 to represent our 50th flight. When we had these coins commissioned, we did this with the specific intent of giving them out not only to our veterans that are associated with the flight, but to each and every single guardian and support staff that were involved with Honor Flight 50. So thank you, Guardians, for everything that you do. I genuinely appreciate your support. As I said earlier, this is impossible without your support. So we have our bus leaders and assistants. They're going to come to your table where you're at, and they're going to present you with that coin while you have a seat. Jeff, do you want to talk a little bit about yours?
Mine too? Yeah. Okay, hey, also, wow, that is a hot mic. Yeah, so they're also going to be passing out another coin that you're going to get tonight that each of our vets got. This is a coin that I had commissioned for Salty's Barbecue and Catering. It says, Honor Flight Kern County, celebrating flight number 50. On the back of the coin, it's got the National Monument or Washington Monument, depending on who you talk to. But it's got our dates, and it's got all the services on the back of it as well, and it says welcome home. So I had those done. I just wanted to do something special. I've been on, this is my 10th flight, and I want to be able to say something special. So everybody here gets one of those as well. Thank you, guys.
Hey guys, so while we still have everyone here, I really want to take just a moment to share a little bit about my experience with this trip in particular. So Honor Flight 50 has been a very special flight to me because earlier this year, when we knew Honor Flight 50 was coming, I received a call from Lee Marsh. I received a call from Lee Marsh, and she asked me a question. She says, Matt, my father just passed away, and I would love it if you would be the tour leader on the flight to take my father on his honor flight. So today, when we were at the World War II Memorial, and we had to read his biography and take him on his trip, it was an incredibly special moment for me, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to share that with all of you. So thank you very much for that. So now, we've still got just a couple of things left. If we can have a seat, if you would, please have a seat if you would. So if you notice up here to my right, there's a microphone on a stand. I'd like to take a moment to open the floor to any veteran, to any guardian, to any member of this staff who's helped make this flight possible, to come up if you'd like to tell a little bit about your experience on Honor Flight 50. The floor is yours. I was going to wait. This is the. Everybody, can we please just have a moment? Mr. Charlie Wilmot would like to say a little bit about his trip. Is that Mr. Charlie Wilmot?
Thank you so much. Charlie Wilmot here. Most of you know me. I think there's about 5 people that haven't met me yet. I'm the one that they keep saying, you're the senior guardian. I'm going on, it's only my 27th flight. I want to tell you all how grateful I am to be on these 27 flights. Back off. Thank you, Kim. Why do I keep doing honor flights? I'm going to get it right one of these days soon. I also know that these memorials, they don't change, but every group of veterans are something special to us. And that's why it's close to my heart. I am a Marine Corps veteran. I served in Vietnam 68 and 69. So I appreciate all of you guys. Anyway, we're going to have a safe trip home. Anyone else like to share something with us? Come on up. Thank you.
All right, Honor Flight 50, I look forward to seeing you guys in the morning. Glenn wanted me to make a note and let you know that those flag boxes will fit perfectly in the duffel bag that you have in your room. Fit perfectly on the bottom. Makes it sit nice and square. We've got a nice square bottom.